So I thought I'd do a little something different and interesting today because I had a conversation with Bering on private channel with a couple other people about the red. He called it the red mirage, and I thought that was a funny way of putting it because what if this red wave is really just an illusion? And all these other votes come out of the woodworks, and now there's contested convention and all that shit. Well, that's why you can't have 8 judges sitting on the Supreme Court. It has to be 9, so there's a tiebreaker. But that's only because that's one of the several utilities that the Supreme Court have. At any rate, I thought we'd discuss something that seems to be a little bit confusing for pretty much everyone that lives outside the United States because the way the United States functions, and that is the Electoral College. Now, I heard Schiff and dumbass AOC and all these other people come out recently and say, we should get rid of the Electoral College because it's an old, archaic system and it just doesn't work for us anymore. You're right, it doesn't work for the Democratic Party anymore. It hasn't for a while. You guys get a little bit of power back and then you fuck it up. You barely win the Electoral College because people in rural cities see you for what you are. And that's why I thought I'd take the time now to explain how the Electoral College works, in a way, and point out why Schiff, AOC, and Hillary Clinton, in fact, said that the Electoral College needs to go away when she lost. And why that's important. She won because she got the popular vote. Had we been a democracy, that means she wins the presidency. She lost the Electoral College, which is what we have, a representative constitutional republic. Now, there is some elements of democracy in there. Our votes count to a sense, but it counts to district and not province or region or whatever the fuck these other people call it. So let me show you what I'm talking about.
Well, lad, I'm gonna show you some of my kung fu. That's called hitting the head.
All right, here is a district map of Texas, one of the biggest states in the United States. It's the second one to Alaska, in fact. Now, this one's painted out by... Oops, I didn't mean to zoom in like that. It's painted out by... Where's the legend? There you are. Blue is Democrat, red is Republican, green is independent, yellow is vacant, and pink is a little bit of both. Okay? So let me show you something. Here is one of the biggest cities in Texas. This is Houston. All right? So you see here we got what? 1, 2, 3. Wait. That's one solid one. So this is 1. This one's 2. This one's 3. And that one's 4. So there's 4 congressional districts inside of Houston. Technically 5, because look, this one that's red is 5, but it also goes outside to here. See that? You see the district line? So when they talk about gerrymandering, they're talking about adjusting those regions on these districts to sway the vote to Democrat or Republican depending. What does that have to do with anything? Well, let me show you. See all this red area here? Let me show you. We'll zoom out. There's 5 districts here, remember? 5. This is one district. Now, the population of Houston is 2.3 million people. The population of this district right here, which I think I looked up earlier, was District 26 or 23? I'm not sure. This district is 750,000 people. So, if we had a full democracy, these districts would not exist. All the popular votes, so all these 5 districts, if you zoom in on San Antonio, pretty much the whole city, you see right there. And the district actually goes all the way up to Austin, which is our capital. And then you have some districts down here that are connected to the border. This is Mexico right here. This right here. This is all Mexico. Anyways, if you go to Austin, Austin's actually kind of red, even though they have crazy people there. Dallas, second biggest city. There's 1, 2, 3 districts there. You see the densely populated areas? See this? This is the biggest probably district. Has, I bet you, 2 million people in it. What this does is say that 5 districts here are the equivalent of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 districts. Let's just take the outside ones right here. Those 5 districts get 1 vote as a cumulative vote. So all those people vote in that area, right? 750,000 people. The majority voted for Republican people. They voted for the Republicans to represent them. They're red. Okay? That 1 vote is equivalent to this few million people, which also includes the airport, right? Let's say this is probably like the equivalent, 750,000. This is 750,000. This is 750,000. On average, that's what it's supposed to be anyways. They try to adjust the lines for population. Well, that one big-ass district has the same voice as this densely populated one section here. And this includes part of downtown. Like, it goes right up in there, right? That means that these guys right here have the same voice as this entire big-ass area of farmland and rural nowhere, basically, within Texas. And this is done on a state level. So, to give you an idea, let me search this up real quick because I forgot to bring this up. Here's a map of representation, if you will. This is a future politics one, so this was not accurate, obviously. 48. There's 48 electoral college votes that come out of Texas. That means there are 48 districts here. 48. You can probably count them out here. I'm not going to take the time to do it. Some of these, like 5 within Houston. There's 4 within Dallas. San Antonio has 3. Austin has, what? 1 big-ass 1, 2, 3, 4. 5-ish. So they have 15, well, almost 20 that's in the major populated areas. However, they have 55, right? Well, the rest of these make up the majority. That means if you live out in the rural areas, you have the same voice, the same say, the same representation as the major city. The whole idea of this was to prevent the tyranny of the majority, mob rule. How do we know Democrats are in favor of mob rule? Well, Kamala Harris and Biden bailed out mobs that were torching the streets because they didn't get what they want or they felt injustice for some reason. Breonna Taylor's been my favorite example of this. She was running drugs and guns. They have evidence of her criminal intent. Yet, somehow, mob rule came out and said, no, she was murdered by the police, and they torched the town. They just destroy everything. That sounds fair, right? Well, the whole reason they came out and do mob rule and mob justice, and they call it social justice, really mob justice, is because of a lie. Well, that also goes with mob rule here. The Democrats want mob rule. When they say their democracy is under threat, it's because we don't have one and they're threatened by that. If we had a democracy, Houston, Dallas, and San Antonio and parts of Austin, the majority, would dictate the entire state. The rest of these people out here, the ones that live in Waco, Tyler, Albertine, San Angelo, Odessa, Lubbock, Amarillo. No voice. You could vote to your heart's content. Hell, the entire county could vote the same way. 750,000 people aren't going to trump 2.3 million, 1.8 million, and like a million and a half here. All these people could vote the same direction. In fact, probably did because they're Democratic-run counties, or cities, rather. So all those people voted that direction, right? Well, it just so happens that even the mayor is Democrat, but the state voted for Republican governor. And you can see why. Now, let me give you a contrast here, because, Texas is a red state, as they call it. Well, here's another one that's a really big, too. So 71, they say over here. I think the last map that I saw that's accurate actually is 55 congressional districts. But here is California. Now, most people know this. If you've ever been to California, all of this coastal stuff is pretty much densely populated, all the way up one end and all the way down the other. There is like no break in major city. There's a few places that are kind of rural, if you want to talk about rural, like right here. This is wilderness land. But if you look at the district, it goes up into Santa Cruz, San Jose. Well, that's cut up, right? San Mateo, that's cut up. San Francisco's all sorts of cut up. You go down to the southern end. San Diego, yeah, that's cut up and takes a chunk out there. LA, see, that's densely populated. The islands actually have people living on them. That's why they have a vote as well. But out here, Mojave National Forest, National Preserve, National Forest. Fort Irwin, this is the military base. Death Valley, this is literal sand dune desert right here. There's nothing living out there. National Park, National Forest, National Park. All the Republican areas are forest, are rural. But this whole section right here has the same vote as one of these sections in this right here has the same vote as this guy right here. It's based on population size. You get to a certain size, you have an additional representative. One vote. That means, unfortunately for these guys, because California seems to think that they're a democracy, because most of the crazy people I've noticed come out of California, I don't know what the fuck they're thinking. I guess they ignore the people that vote the other direction here. They ignore them. For whatever reason. But the thing is, those people have the same voice as the ones out here. But because most of this is densely populated, most of this is democratically run, these guys drown out the 5 or 6 places that are still voting Republican. Most of it is reserve and farming land and stuff like that, or places that can catch on fire. But I digress. I wanted to point this out because basically, one district here has the same vote as this smaller district here because they both have the same population size. That means the minority has the same vote as the majority. Period. You guys always wanting about equal representation and inclusion and diversity and all that other shit that you bark constantly are exclusionary to people because you want a democracy. You want majority rule, period. That means the minority doesn't get a voice. You've excluded them. That's exclusion, not inclusion. You don't want diversity because the diversity of thought or the diversity of the minority that you're supposed to you be worried about, you're about to marginalize. And you're always worried about marginalizing people or marginalized people. You're about to marginalize the minority. Marginalize a bunch of farmers, farmhands, workers, people that have work 150 acre of freaking wheat so you can have bread on your table. Those are the people you're going to marginalize. You don't seem to care. It's pretty pathetic that you don't.
What do you have to say?
So I hope that clears things up. Basically, what it comes down to is we have a bunch of districts, counties, if you will. And each one of those is separated by the size of their population, and they try to move the lines every year, it seems, to try and capture more into it. You turn one red and turn one blue, and it's always an argument. It's stupid. Essentially, the whole idea is the minorities in these areas have the same voice as the majority. It makes people equal. Now, is it completely fair? It's not equitable, because you don't get equal outcomes out of this. But you have equal opportunity. That means all the people in that particular district get to have the same voice as the people in the downtown center areas that are overpopulated or densely populated. 2.3 million people in Houston. And you can't drown out the voices of 750,000 people in rural Texas. Same thing goes for California. 2 or 5 million in San Diego. But you can't drown out the voices on the rim that border Nevada. You can't. Unless, the entire coast aligns against you, in which case you're screwed. But this is a short description of what the Electoral College is and how it works. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time.